Hey guys. How is everybody doing? So, see if people join the live stream here. All right, welcome gang. I watched video number 1 and I concluded that I said way too much and that I had too many pauses in the conversation. So today we're going to try and move a little bit quicker. And if you miss stuff, the video is watchable a second time. So no stress there. Today we're going to go on with seams, and then we are going to make a lunch bag today, and then we're also going to redesign this so that you guys can make a sandwich bag here. If you don't have Velcro and you don't have binding tape, you can make one at home without those things. And my main goal with making those bags and redesigning it, gang, is the process. So yes, I'm going to tell you, here's what my template is, here's what the measurement is, here are the steps you do. But I want to go through the process of how we arrived at the template that we arrived at, so that if you guys are making other stuff and you guys are getting into designing, that you understand the process, which is what I think most important. Okay, let's get right into it. Allow me a moment to put on my very fashionable chest cam here. I know it's old school, but it works. Okay, let's fire up our machine. I'll get you guys mounted up here. Okay, so let's carry on with seams, and we're going to get into how to binding tape seams today, because we need to know that for making our first bag. So I have my machine set up as I do the vast majority of the time with 69 weight 3-ply bonded nylon thread. Last time I talked a lot about lighter weight polyester thread, and that was mainly because I assume that's what most of you guys are going to be using on your machines, because it's unlikely that your home store machines will accept a needle that's big enough to use a really heavy nylon thread. Okay, so I have the thread loaded in my machine that I feel is appropriate for the material that I'm working with. Again, as we talked about last time, we have to match the needle to our thread. So we have a big, thick, heavy thread. You need a big, thick needle, but that's only going to make a strong seam if your material can handle it. So I'm not using this setup on really lightweight fabric. Okay. So last time we learned a good side to good side seam. So let's do that again, and then we're going to progress on to binding taping it. So I've identified the good side of one fabric. I've identified the good side of the other fabric. Good sides to good sides. And maybe you guys have a guide set up to mark your 1.5 centimeter seam allowance, and that's roughly 5/8 of an inch for the American folk. Sorry, just getting you guys adjusted here. Okay, so a little forward and back to start. And one thing you guys may encounter on your machines is if you start with this material is exactly the same length of this material, and you're sewing and you're like, what the heck? I have more material, as in there's some slippage going on. that can happen on traditional sewing machines. And what you can do, let's finish this off here. Oops, I'm out of bobbin thread. No problem. New bobbin, as we remember, thread coming off, forming a 6. Plunk it in there, slot it in place. Hold my top thread, manually rotate my machine 1 cycle. Rotate, rotate, rotate. Okay. Get my bobbin thread out. Wonderful. There we go. Finish this off. Forward and back. Forward and back. And our machine ends. We manually rotate forward with the wheel until the needle is up. And also this little guy is up as well. And then we can pull things out. Trim, 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 trim. Okay, so what I was saying is if you guys are experiencing some slippage, as in when you sew, one fabric gets pushed more than the other, that can happen. So on a home sewing machine, these feed dogs right down here, these are the things at the bottom that pull the material through. And on most home sewing machines, and even on some industrial machines, they only pull from the bottom, and the top presser foot here is just simply steamrolling. And so if you have things being pulled from the bottom and only pressure from the top, sometimes that bottom fabric can get pulled a little more. So if you guys are experiencing that, the cure is to basically just hold the fabric under tension. And as you're holding it under tension, allowing the machine to pull it through as it wants to. So I'm not pulling the fabric through. You're just holding the fabric under tension, and then and letting the machine do its thing. That can help solve the problem. If you are in the market for an industrial machine, absolutely get one that has either a needle feed or compound feed. So this isn't focusing here, but so this is my lightest weight industrial machine, and this has a needle feed. So can you guys see where the needle is going in? So I'd be going into the fabric, and then as it goes through its motion, can you see that needle pulling back? So as in, there's not a whole lot of space in there, and then it comes forward for another bite of fabric and moves backwards, and so it's basically going and chewing the fabric through there. So I have the quite luxury of not having the issue of fabric slippage on a needle feed machine. Anyways, okay, so we've done our good side to good side, and now you want to binding tape it. And binding taping is serves a few purposes here, and this is how I finish absolutely all of my products. Binding taping on the zipper, which we're going to do next lesson. Binding taping on the main seams, and so it basically prevents the fabric from unraveling, which can happen with outdoor fabrics, and so it gives a lot of strength and prevents unraveling and looks nice and professional. Okay, so I use 1-inch binding tape. This is also called gross grain ribbon if you're looking for it on Amazon or whatever. You can get it in nylon. You can also get it in polyester. Nylon is stronger. Nylon is stiffer, which is just nicer to work with. And it is more expensive. And as you start getting multiple layers of things, as we're going to see when we make our lunch bag, it can get quite difficult to sew through. Polyester, the benefits, less expensive, and and it's much easier physically for your needle to go through, much easier to sew. It's not as stiff, and I don't find it quite as enjoyable to work with, so I prefer nylon. Okay, 1 inch binding tape, and we simply fold that in half and do exactly what crease this. Oops. Crease this as you go along, and make sure it's all getting sewn over. Now I've got a big old fancy machine over there that has an automatic binder, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing binding tape by hand. I did that for years and years and years and years. And now you could top stitch that if you wanted to, forward and back to start. And again, we're remembering to line up our eye with the outside of our presser foot with some sort of reference, doesn't matter what reference, and avoiding the temptation to stare at our needle that's going up and down, and it's going to cause us to get mesmerized. Forward and back to end. Okay, we just made a good side to good side binding taped seam, which is now triple stitched. Strong, strong, strong. Awesome. Okay, good. That's binding taping. It's quite simple. So now let's get set up for a couple of other things we're going to need to make our lunch bag here, gang. The other one, actually, let's get a fresh piece of fabric here. Okay, next skill we're going to do, gang, is just a simple, either a single or double hem. Again, I don't know if those are the actual terms people use, but it's what I use. So a single hem is just simply folding the fabric over once and sewing it. Okay, let's do that. And as I'm doing a single hem here, gang, I am making sure to line up relative to this outside edge, because that is what will be visible from the outside. And so I want my stitches to be nice and parallel to this edge. I could be doing an outstanding job of lining up with this raw edge here, but that's not visible from the outside. And so if my fold over is a little bit askew, which, you know, sure, sometimes it is, that's fine, and I'm lining up with this inside raw edge, when I look at it from the outside, it's going to be wonky relative to this other edge. Okay, I'm blabbing on too much. Let's just go here. And if you only wanted to hem the one side, I would just finish off. An example of why you might do that is if you were going to make a patch that you want to sew onto your pants, for example. Fold the other edge here. And if you want to change direction, gang, just make sure your needle is in the fabric. If it's not, once again, you can manually rotate your wheel forwards until it is. You can lift up your presser foot, and then you can just rotate your fabric, and off you go again on a new direction. Lift it up. Lift it up, forward and back to end. Okay, so now we've done a single hem around this piece of fabric. And we'll get into when we might use a single hem here when we do the lunch bag. And the goal always in sewing is to never, ever, ever, ever have a raw edge visible. And so this would be acceptable if this thing was going to get sewn down, and you'll never see the underside ever again. Okay, single hem, awesome. Double hem is just like it sounds. There's a single, and then roll it over again to make a double, and there's no raw edge visible. And so if you were, such as on our lunch bag here, if the edge and the inside was going to be visible in the product, then you'd want to do a double hem. And once again, lining up with the outside or the edge that is going to be visible after we're done. Trim, trim. What happened there, gang, is I was a little bit sloppy, and my bobbin thread kind of got sucked down. So when you're starting, just kind of pull your threads off to one side, and then let your pressure foot down. I was getting a little sloppy there. Okay, so here we have a rolled or a double hem. There we go. Okay. So a good side to good side seam. We know how to binding tape a seam. We know a single hem. We know a double hem. So before we get into actually making our lunch bag, let's just go through a very simple construction technique. And it's basically still just doing a good side to good side seam, but we're kind of introducing sewing everything from inside out, and then after you're done, you turn it right side out, and your product is revealed. So let's say I just want to make a very a simple flap style bag here. So I have a big long rectangle of fabric. Identify the good side, fold the thing good sides to good sides, and just like we did before, line everything up. 1.5 centimeter seam allowance, forward and back to start. Blast through to the end, forward and back again. Trim all our threads off here. And you can see this is now much lighter fabric than this heavy pack fabric I was working on. And you can see the tension is a little bit, oh, there we go, a little bit off now. You can see those loops forming on the top of the fabric. So my top tension is a little bit tight. I'm not going to worry about it because we're going to go back to working on the heavyweight fabric. But if we were continuing to work on this lightweight fabric, I would adjust that tension. Okay, to the other side, forward and back to start, forward and back at the end. Beautiful. And turn it inside out. And now we have made a very basic bag. Now, some problems here are raw edges. We have raw edges on the inside. And that's not good. That's not professional. And those are going to unravel. And we have a raw edge on the top. That's not good either. So how can we fix these things? Well, one way is we could binding tape our internal seams. And for the sake of I'm trying to keep this video as short as possible. Let's say we've done that. Okay, wonderful. And then how we could fix this top one is we could binding tape that one as well. Or we could just simply do a nice rolled or double hem on this top edge here. So let's go ahead and do that. And you can start to see how the layers are going to get pretty thick here. So here we have 2 layers of fabric at our seam. Say we had binding tape that. Okay, that's 4 layers now. And now we're doing a double hem. So that's going to roll over 2 times. And so it's going to be going, this needle is going to be going through that 3 times. So it's going to be 4, 8. We're going to have 12 layers of material there potentially. So you can quite quickly get really thick layers going on. And so consider that when you're choosing your material and what your machine is capable of sewing through. Keep going around here. Okay. We're laughing. So our original good side to good side seams here look nice and clean. That's beautiful. Let's pretend our inside seams were binding taped. So no ridges there. Okay, great. And then the top edge here has a rolled or a double hem. And there's no ridges there. Okay, we're laughing. There we go. But there's no way of closing this, right? This is kind of an open bag, and there's no way of closing it. But we're getting there. How are we doing, gang? Hope everyone is good. As I say, you can go back and rewatch that stuff if we went a little bit quickly there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I want to run through the process of how I arrived at the template that I arrived at for this sandwich bag. And then we're going to do another one where you don't need Velcro and you don't need binding tape. Okay, so when I'm designing something, gang, first thing I'll do is just start some simple drawing. Okay, so first I want to fit a sandwich in here. So I would measure my piece of bread, which I've already done. I'm not going to bring a sandwich down here. 12 centimeters wide is how wide the bread that I eat is. And I measured 13 centimeters. 13 centimeters upslope. Okay, wonderful. Then I'd have a little sketch here on my bag. Okay, we're good. And now we can see that this bag here, gang, is one big, long, continuous rectangle. There's no seam there at the bottom. So if we imagine if we undid all the seams and expanded this bag out open, it would just be a big old long rectangle. Is what we have to cut out. Okay, so how wide does this need to be to function to hold our sandwich? Oh, and the depth on the sandwich that I measured was 4 centimeters. Okay, so how wide does this need to be? So let's start. So x equals, let's go back to grade 7 math. Let's start from one edge and work our way over. So first we have a seam allowance. Okay. Seam allowance. Awesome. Plus. This is just a flat two-dimensional panel here. And so when you put the sandwich in there, in this flat fabric, there has to be the depth. So it has to come up to the height of sandwich. It has to go across the width of the sandwich, and it has to go back down. And the depth, half of the depth is coming from one panel, half of the depth is coming from the other panel. Okay, so once again, going from, we've got a seam allowance, then we have 1/2 of the depth plus the width plus another 1/2 of the depth plus another seam allowance. Okay, so our seam allowance is 1.5 centimeters. You got half a depth and half a depth, so that's 1 depth total. And the depth we measured on our sandwich was 4 centimeters. Okay, so plus 4 centimeters. Now we have the width, and the width of our sandwich that we actually physically measured was 12 centimeters. Plus 12 centimeters, plus another seam allowance on the other end. Oops, plus 1.5. Okay, 1.5 is 3, plus 4 is 7, plus 12 is 19. Okay, and here, this is the original template from this lunch bag, and it is 19 centimeters wide. I'll let the Americans do the conversion. So divided by 2.54 will get you inches. Okay, and so the reason I'm wasting all your time here, gang, is I really want to teach you guys the process. I don't just want to give you the answer. I want to teach you guys how to grow a garden. I don't just want to hand you the carrot. And so that when you're working on other projects, you can go through the process and figure it out. Okay, so now we can mark that here on our panel that needs to get cut out, 19 centimeters, and then the Y distance, how far up and down does this need to go? So how I arrived at the distance that I did, once again, we've got a seam allowance, and I want to have a little bit of slop space in here because I don't want the sandwich coming right. You know, I don't want my lettuce peeking out here. I want it nicely tucked in there. So seam allowance, some slop. I need the height of the sandwich, and then I need it to accommodate the depth of the sandwich, and then I need another height of sandwich, and then I need another slop space, and then I need a fold over, and then I need another seam allowance. And in the name of carrying on with the video here, all those things add up to 43 centimeters. Great. Awesome. So I've already cut this out for us to save a little bit of time. So here's our 43 centimeter panel. So as with any project, gang, it's all about chess, little chess match. So what moves do you have to make first? You know, kind of like making a peanut butter and jam sandwich, right? You can't, you have to do certain steps before you do other steps. And on a sandwich bag here, you know, it's fairly straightforward. But as we progress into things like, you know, shopping bags, maybe we're getting into making backpacks, there can be, you know, hundreds and hundreds of steps. And once you've done one step, it can be impossible sometimes to go back and do another step. So if you put the peanut butter and jam on first, well, it's really difficult to put it in the toaster. You need to put it in the toaster first. And so this is just a lot of learning and trial and error and just thinking about it. So first off here, gang, is I'm going to hem this top edge. And this is up to you. You could do a double hem here, or what I've done is just a single hem and folded it back on top and sewn the Velcro over top of that. So let's do that, what I've done here. And the reason I did that is just to minimize the bulk. Again, though, I want you guys thinking for yourselves. Maybe a good reason to do a double hem here is when it comes time to sew these all together, if you want to create a more stronger join here, as we talked about in first lesson when we did stitch length, the stronger the material is, the more stitches it can handle and the stronger it becomes. And so if you anticipate this being a high wear area, maybe you want a double hem there, more fabric, you can handle more stitches and it can be stronger. Okay, we've gone with just a single, so let's do that. And it's a good habit to get into, especially as you're starting off, to try and only do one thing at a time. So we need to hem this over first. And then we'll sew the Velcro on. You can get cocky later on, and some people might fold that over and sew the Velcro on all in one step. And that's fine if you're comfortable doing that. And for you who may be more advanced users and you have your template dialed, this is now where you can really like motor off a whole bunch of units. And I could now just, you know, I'll feed in my next unit and crank off another one and another one, and you don't even have to stop sewing just forward and back. I'll keep going to the next one. Anyways, I just sort of throw that in there if there's any advanced folks who are tuned in. Okay, we got to stitch the other side of the Velcro here. Okay, so now, yes, I've used a little bit different width of Velcro, but now we have on the red fabric what we have on this one. I folded it over at the top and tucked it under the Velcro. Okay, awesome. And the reason I've done, so in this bag you can see that I've just simply sewn it bad sides to bad sides and binding tape from the outside, which is pretty rare. Usually you want to kind of hide all your binding tape stuff on the inside so that it's nice and clean. And the reason I went for the bad side to bad side here is then when you are sliding your sandwich in there, there's no seams or there's no bulkiness to catch, and it's just a nice smooth entry in there. Anyways, a minor detail, but that's Alpine Threadworks, baby. Okay, and now we're going to do our good side to good side seam, and it may look like I'm being lazy here just by lining them up. I'm just wanting to make the video not last an hour and a half. In reality, we would want to measure, maybe have a little chalk mark here where we want to sew, and we would add that up by whatever our seam allowance is here, plus whatever fold over we allotted in our design. That is what this measurement would be. I'm just doing it quick and dirty here. Okay, so I'm going to sew this good sides to good sides. And now this is a time where you can see I'm sewing a little bit less than a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance, because this initial line of stitching I want to be hidden under the binding tape. That'll make sense here in one sec. Okay, we do the other side. Trim. Trim. Okay. Velcro gets out of here. Binding tape comes in. And now, usually, when you're binding taping a seam, it's going to end up inside. So yeah, we want the binding tape for strength, to stop unraveling, to look professional, but it's hidden away on the inside. And if I haven't perfectly folded this exactly in half, it's not the end of the world. On something like this, both sides of the binding tape are going to be visible. So we really do want to make sure that we're folding that over as precisely as we can. So now, gang, you can see why I wanted to have the initial stitches here less than when we binding tape, that initial stitches gets hidden. Also, when we come to this point, I'm going to do some forward and back just to reinforce that area. And forward and back when we stop. Some people at the end here will, before they end, will like double this over and then fold it over. So again, there's no raw edge showing. Me, just for speed of production, you know, I want to be able to do this one and carry on and do the next one, carry on to the next one. And also, I think it's arguable which is cleaner. I'll now take this outside to my hot knife and just hot knife that nice and clean. Okay, let's carry on to the next one here. Okay. Okay, we're getting there. So now, all we have to do is the top Velcro. And again, that goal of never, ever, ever, ever having a raw edge showing. So right now we have a raw edge on the top of the fabric. And I'm going to get cocky here and do 2 steps with one sew, which if you're comfortable with that, great. If not, you could just sew this over and then sew your Velcro on. Try and speed the video up. I'm going to do them all at once here. Forward and back. Trim threads, trim Velcro, trim threads. And you can see this, I don't know if you can see that, but for this fold over, we obviously want that to be hidden inside here. So you wouldn't want to fold this fabric over so much that it'd be sticking out past the Velcro. We want the this final stitch here to hide that internal raw edge. Boom, we're done. Awesome. Nice work, gang. How is everyone's attention span doing? Are we good? Okay, so I really do want you guys to be able to make one of these at home, and I don't want you guys to have to feel you need to spend money and go buy binding tape and Velcro. So let's do a redesign and do a slight modification of this, but do it where all we need is just a piece of fabric. So doing it like this isn't going to work because we don't have any binding tape and we're going to have raw edges on the inside. Unacceptable. Time for more math. So basically, what we're going to do is rolled seams or a double seam all the way around, or pardon me, a double hem all the way around. And then we're just going to do a simple good side to a good side. Okay. So let's do that. Okay, so our previous template for this one was X was 19 wide and Y, we got here 43 up and down. Okay, so what's going to be different? Let's talk about the X coordinate here, or sorry, X coordinate this way. So here we just had a standard seam allowance, and here we just had a standard seam allowance, 1.5 centimeters. So for this one, we want to first be able to do a rolled or a double hem and a double hem. And so we need to, over here. So double is going to be 3 centimeters on this side, and a double hem is going to be 3 centimeters on that side. So we need to add on plus 6 centimeters. Okay, 25 centimeters wide. And you're saying, whoa, Neil, no, that math doesn't make sense. You've already have a 1.5. Oh, don't just have to add on 1.5. You'll see no is the answer. So we need to do a double hem, which is going to be 3 centimeters. And then we also need a seam allowance to be able to sew them together good sides to good sides. So that's why I'm adding on 6 centimeters on top of where we've already counted for this seam allowance. Hope I didn't blab too much there. And same thing up and down. We have to add on 6 centimeters. Actually, no. Now let's think about that here. No, because these are not going to have any good side to good side seams. So all we have to do is a double here and a double here. We already have enough for a single and a single. So all we have to do is add on 1.5 there and 1.5 there. So all we have to do is add on 3 centimeters in total. Okay, so if you guys at home, if you want to make a lunch bag without any Velcro or binding tape, 46 centimeters up and down and 25 centimeters wide. Now hold off, don't cut your fabric yet. This genuinely is the first time I've made this, and absolutely nothing works out the first time you do it. So, you know, this thing has Velcro to close, and we're basically making a bag that's going to end up the same as this, but just without Velcro. So maybe you guys need to do some testing. Maybe you want this to be massively longer so that it can flop over. Maybe you want to make both of them taller so that you can roll them down. I don't know. That's why I want to go with process here and not just give you guys an answer. So let's make it as per our drawing. But as I say, you guys can experiment and test on your own. Okay, so I've already cut out here 25 wide and 46 top slope. And I have red fabric and black thread. No. I should change this thread to red. Once again, I just want to keep the video going here, and we're going to sew with black. Okay, so here we go. We're going to do a double hem on 3 sides, both long sides and 1 short side. You'll see why in a sec here. Okay, and stopping shy of the edge here. And you don't have to do this all in one go. You could finish off here, remove it from the machine, trim your threads, and then go again on the other edge. But it's much faster just to do it all as one. Now, once again, make note of what thickness material you're doing. So a double hem here is 3 layers of fabric, and now we're intersecting another one. We have 6 layers of fabric. So just a heads up, you don't want to get into your project and then realize that your machine can't handle the thickness. Okay, so we have a rolled or double hem here on 3 sides, and we've left the top one raw, and the top raw edge is going to end up being the top flap. Okay, so now all we're doing literally now is exactly what we did when we started. when we made this simple pouch here, and we're just doing a good side to good side seam, and just kind of basically ignoring the fact that we have a rolled seam here. Don't let that complicate things. So once again, a bad side of the fabric, which is also the side that has the fold over on. So this is the good side of the fabric. So we're folding over, and we're going good sides to good sides. I'm being quite quick and dirty and not leading by example here. In terms of I'm just eyeballing things, but we'd absolutely want to measure, okay, what was our seam allowance up here? 3 centimeters for a double hem, plus whatever fold over clearance we want. That would be our top measurement there. I'm just kind of gonna wing it here for the sake of speeding up the video. And when I'm sewing this, what I really want to do is be inside of the thread that composed our double hem. If I sew this together on this side of it, when I turn it inside out, you'll see the original stitches come through. Here's what I'll do. I'll sew one of these sides the proper way, so coming inside of it, and you'll see how that works out. And I'll sew the other side incorrectly, and you can see what happens there. So now we have a lot of material here. We have 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 layers of fabric now. And so this can really withstand a whole lot of forward and back, forward and back, forward and back. And that's going to make a really strong attachment point there. If we were just sewing one layer onto one layer and we were going thinking, oh yeah, we're making this really strong. No, you're not. You're just cutting the fabric in half. Okay. Okay, now on this side, I'm going to do it incorrectly, just so you guys can see. So I'm going to sew outside of our hem stitches. And you'll see how aesthetically not pleasing that turns out. And even my big, heavy industrial here was really working pretty hard there. Granted, this is 500 denier Cordura, but even still. Okay, I'll turn this guy right side out. And so you can see here, this was the one that I did correctly. You see, nice and clean, no stitches showing through. And this was the side I did incorrectly, and you can see the original hem stitches showing through there. It's just not pleasing to the eye. Then we have our double hem here, so we have no raw edges there. And the reason I saved this hem here till last is it can kind of just help. It can kind of help keep this bag a bit flat. If we do it last, we may have to do some top stitching here. I'm not sure. Now let's do a double hem up here. Okay, there we go. So not a single raw edge can be seen anywhere. Great success. Now, whether this functions or not, I don't think so. I think you guys are going to have to do some testing, which is how everything works. like actually use the thing. Like put a sandwich in here, put it in your bag, see how it works. I think this will have to be made taller. Maybe both of these are made taller so that you can roll them down. I recommend having one of these offsets. There's a bit of a so that when you're putting your sandwich in there, there's like something to like slide it in on. If both of these are at the same, if these are parallel, I find it's a little bit harder to slide things in there. Anyways, maybe we're nerding out too much for just a sandwich bag, but I'm a nerd and I like nerding out. So there we go. Bit longer than I had anticipated there, gang. You guys are absolute champs. I see 6 people are still all tuned in. That's awesome. I appreciate your patience there, gang. Happy sewing. And our next session, we are going to do zippers. And we're going to make a little ditty bag, a pencil case. Maybe you want to make a bag to hold your repair kit for ski touring. I don't know, whatever. So next lesson is zippers. And once again, this will be sort of a one piece of fabric type thing, just like this was. And then on lesson number 3, we'll get into like multiple panels and how that all works. So I think lesson 3 will probably make a design and make a shopping bag if we're going to the grocery store. Okay. Happy sewing. Good luck. Fire away with any questions. You can email me. You can write in the comments on this video. And I will answer those questions. I see one there from Adam. I'd be interested to see how you get things nicely square when you're cutting the fabric. Excellent question, Adam. One thing I didn't mention is when you're making things, gang. So this is the template that I use to make our red sandwich bag. So I use a Carpenter's T-square. I enjoy carpentry on the side. So Carpenter's T-square, and make the template like square. And then you have a template, and you don't have to do anything on the fabric. You just like flop this down on the fabric, and that keeps everything square for you. And also the benefit of making a template is then you don't forget what measurements you used, and just write on here like version 1 lunch bag. Okay, great. And then in your testing, you're like, oh, I'd like it to be like 2 centimeters wider. You have a record of what you did, instead of just drawing chalk on your fabric and cutting it out, and then you might forget what you did. I hope that answered your question there, Adam. But maybe next one we can actually look at cutting the fabric out and what chalk pencils I use and cutters and things like that. But a Carpenter square, make a template. The template is square, and you're off to the races. Okay. Ciao, guys. Thank you.